Okay, what time is it now? It's now 6:30, Tuesday, July 1st, 2025. This is a meeting of the Lad Board Select, or the Town Wayne Board of Selectmen. Present are all of them.
Except for Emery.
Emery's not there because he's not there. He didn't get reelected and he didn't want to. We will call meeting to order, and we will then rise and we will do this with chair piece. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. Conflict of interest with today's agenda?
No.
Okay, none suggested. Select board officer nominations for FY 26. All right, so
So I have a question, procedural question.
yes,
Do we do it chair and then vice chair, or do we want to do a combined slate of a chair and a vice chair in one fell swoop?
last year we did it to two separate ones, but we could do it, it's not essential either way. So,
Why don't we just do one and then do the other?
okay,
Okay. Sound good.
so we did nominations requested for select board chairman.
I'd like to nominate Henry to be the chair of the select board.
Second that. Any further discussion?
Well, I don't know, just Henry needs to say whether or not he'd like to accept that.
I'd be happy to do that. That would be fine.
Okay, he is accepted. Is there any further discussion?
Need to vote?
No? All in favor? Fine, we've got a new chairman. Mr. Chairman, the meeting's yours.
I'd like to nominate Lloyd as the vice chair of the select board.
Second.
Discussion?
Would you like to accept the nomination?
Yes,
All in favor?
okay.
Do we have anyone online?
Yes, you have the Spaldings, Annie Moran, and Ted Tucci.
I guess,
Okay.
should we be announcing?
No,
We have somebody
we-
online or?
We do that when we do that when we have one of our members online. Although I don't see anything wrong with having everything done by roll call, but we haven't done that in the past.
I mean,
Not-
if
Not
we were gonna
necessarily roll
acknowledge,
call, I just meant
Yeah.
we're just using hand signs, so we
Yeah.
can see the, well, I guess they can.
And we record that,
Okay.
yeah,
and we record them.
Okay,
And it was unanimous. so,
okay,
Yeah, but,
want me to go now?
yep, it's yours.
Okay,
Oh,
let's review and nominate, or let's review and sign the ethics policy. Has everyone had a chance to look at that?
Do we get
two packets.
oh, I put one over there. Does everybody down there have a packet? I had two,
I
so
have
I
two,
gave
so
one
I
to
feel
you.
it-
I think I have one.
Does everybody have one?
Do you have a packet,
Got
Tom?
one in the town office today, but I'm not sure if it's complete.
Oh.
I have 3 separate documents.
You should have a book,
Minute.
a small book.
There's one.
I made the assumption I had mine and Hazel's, that's what happened.
I wasn't sure whether there was a difference, so I didn't want to.
Yeah.
Be flipping.
Does anybody have any questions or comments on the code of ethics?
I only have one, and that is that I am certain that we have worked this over a document for 7 pages back 4 or 5 years ago. And we actually made some edits to that, but there may not be any file reflecting it. This one here, Gary Kenny was 7 years ago that he was last, and it's dated 2007. So a lot of things have come up since then. So could you look next week the files for whether there's a more recent ethics? Yes. Or when you get to it, because we got till 2 weeks for another meeting, but get rid of other stuff first. But we have no question of that.
Well, Yeah, and if there's a problem with this one, or somebody wants to change a provision of it, we can always do that.
I didn't say anything.
One of the things that we might want to do, I don't think it matters, but in the second paragraph, you know, I don't know if we want to change Board of Selectmen to Select Board. And so Board of Selectmen is just the old,
Right,
Yeah.
I agree, because I was looking at the be it resolved by the Wayne Board of Selectmen, I was gonna
Yeah.
make the same comment that
Yeah.
throughout, we should update that reference.
It's
to
like-
be
Yeah, in
Everywhere,
every
yeah.
case
Gender.
that we run.
Yeah,
Good,
the
okay.
agrees that, perfect example is, was 2007.
I wonder what we signed last year, I had
It-
no recollection of what it was dated.
it was this one that we looked at last year, yeah. Okay, so we're gonna go through and change all the references to Board of Selectmen to Select Boards. Everybody
Right.
Yeah.
on board with that?
Yep.
Okay. Another thing to consider is in the same paragraph where it talks about the various boards to include the Select Board, Budget Committee, Planning Board, Board of Appeals. Do we want to name the Conservation Commission in there also? I think it would fall under the catch-all of others, but just if we want to, we can add it.
Or we could say including, but not limited to, which is,
Yeah, and it has as well as other appointees or short-term groups. So I think it would come under, I think the Conservation Commission would come under that as well as other appointees. And
Yeah.
so we don't need to add it, but
Okay.
well, I'd say maybe add both, because Conservation Committee is kind of a.
I think it's an
prominent
important one, yes.
one,
Yeah.
so I would say add it,
Okay,
but then add the, but not limited to.
I was gonna say, because there's the farmer's market.
well, we have as well as, so I think
Yes.
that as well as other appointees or short-term groups. Now, some of these are not currently groups, I don't think. We
Like the
don't have
Charter
we
Commission,
don't
we
have a
got-
charter commission.
Yeah.
We don't have a land use ordinance committee that I
Do we have
see
a
referenced anywhere.
Cemetery
recreation.
committee right now? I don't.
We
We have a,
We
we
do.
do have a cemetery committee. We don't have a recreation committee. Do you wanna line those out, or do you wanna just say as well as other appointees or short-term groups and committees?
Well, perhaps since we're updating it, why don't we update it with the current,
Okay, that would be fine.
current committees?
And then say as well as any other committees that may be instituted in the future. I would say we should
Yeah.
cross those out if they're not currently operating.
Well, we wanna add a conservation commission,
Mhm.
after Board of Appeals. Agreed?
Yep.
Okay. And then as well as other appointees or short-term groups such as comprehensive planning, we don't have one of those right this minute. We don't have a land use ordinance committee, I don't believe.
Here's the big list of.
Yeah.
people.
Right.
Yes,
What's the charter commission? I'm not familiar with that one.
Yeah. no,
the charter, we don't have a charter commission.
So we're left with
They're the. building
planning and
committee, that-
recycling. and
that-
We don't,
It's not active right now, but the building committee,
I don't believe we have a recreation committee.
No,
We have a regional solid waste committee. Is that like the recycling, or do you just want to go down that list and add all the committees that we have? You want to do that? Let's just,
it comes to go.
yeah, let's just
Sure.
update that to the ones that we have currently.
yes.
And those were the only things that I noticed. Are there any other changes that anybody else would like to propose?
I would like to sign the updated version.
Yeah, we need a.
Yeah.
Bring that next week.
Well, we have is, yeah, if we have one, I don't. This is the one that I know of. That, back when I was on the appeals board, we signed a certification saying that we reviewed this one, and this has been the one that's been on the website for.
Yeah.
You know, for a long time, but if there's a more current one, we should bring it in and consider it.
Right, yeah. we should-
But-
Well, there will be after we make these changes, correct?
Oh, yes, yes, okay,
Yep, so the next meeting.
okay. So, moving on, let's review the, select board bylaws. Have y'all had a chance to look at those?
Mhm.
Okay,
I didn't this time, but I have in the past.
I suggest maybe we go through them. And, see what we want to do, if anything. I would suggest to take them by groups of sections. If you look at sections 1 through section 4, officers and duties. If anyone has any comments, suggestions, or revisions on that.
I didn't review, I read this thing today, I didn't review it for changes, but I don't see anything obvious.
Okay. Then moving on to the next meetings, that section 4 needs to be renumbered to 5. And all the subsequent ones, section numbers renumbered. We had 2 4s. Okay. It's not a big deal, but might as well fix it up.
Still another, if we're gonna make changes, Shannon and I were talking about this in the town office today, select board, 2 words or 1? And our shared thought was 2 words, but you see it both ways throughout all the paperwork. Do we want to clean that up as well?
I think it's 2 words.
I think it's 2 words.
Oh, we addressed this when we did the job description and I think we landed on. I can't remember what we landed on. I'm looking at Mary Ann.
I-
We went through that.
I think we ended up with 1 word, but I have used, word and been corrected for 2 words. I am more comfortable with 2 words because sometimes we just shorten it to board.
Right.
Does it matter? So can we just use 2 words?
I'm okay with 2 words.
Okay. So as we go through all these things. Well, you were going to make select board 2 words.
Global replace, so much easier.
Yeah,
And then, but we'll still use the term board as a short thing, is that, okay,
okay, now on section 5 on notices. If we can change this any way we want. So if we're going to say that notices are posted at the post office, town office. They need to be posted at those places. I don't know if we've been doing that.
We have not.
Okay. Do we want to post them at one of those places or at both of those places? We can say what we please, or none of those places. But whatever we say, that's what we should do.
I think it might be beneficial to post a list of the dates and then we can have the agendas at the town office
That makes sense.
sure.
Okay,
Good idea.
for planning purposes.
Yes, I think, because I do like the idea of having it at the post office where people can see it. But if we could just put a list of the dates, then there wouldn't be somebody having to run down there
yeah, I think that,
every 2 weeks.
yeah, I think someplace other than the website is good. I don't know that everyone has a computer. Or looks at the website. So, we're going to, change this where it says notice of all board meetings shall be given as required by law. The town manager or designee will post. So what do we want to say? A notice of the dates, times, and places of all meetings?
Is there a certain projection on how far out you're looking?
We can do the whole year because
And if
With-
we,
with a
if it
person
needs to be
phone.
changed, we can change it. There probably isn't gonna go without some changes, but
Right, special meetings are typically ad hoc or.
yes, and they need
Yeah.
to have,
And there's a number of them.
they need to have a notice posted at a
Yes.
special meeting.
And then last month we changed
Yes,
them, and the previous month we changed them, but that's
And-
very unusual.
yeah, I think we changed it a couple times last year. So, notice of all board meetings shall be given as required by law, period. The town manager or designee will post notice of the date, times, and locations of all meetings at the post office and town office.
And on the
That fair?
website.
In the winter time, do you switch to an earlier time?
We were earlier and then because we were earlier because it made more sense for you and Kathy when she was coming to not have to hang around.
Oh.
But then we had some traffic issues with Hazel, and I think we'll stay at 6:30 until she tells us the traffic situation has cleared up. And then,
yeah, I mean, that's, if you don't mind leaving it until road construction's done, because it's so difficult to get out of Augusta.
Yeah,
Maybe we can revisit it. That would put us getting close to winter time anyway. I think it's through
Mm.
November.
Yeah.
We could
Is that what
revisit
it is?
then, and I'd be willing to entertain conversation again.
Yeah. You're the one with the restrictions, so we should pay attention to that.
Well, I think the bylaws also said 6:30.
Mm.
So,
Okay, and remember, our renumbering is going along all through on section numbers.
Yep.
Yeah.
Any comments on page 3?
So
has a-
before we move on, though, we're required to post the notice, but we're not required to post an agenda.
I believe that's true. Yeah. Yeah,
I was doing some light reading.
Oh.
In the MMA handbook,
Yes.
and actually one of the recommendations is you use humor. So. That's what it says right in here, interjects humor.
Really?
So I think if, I think it's good to put the agenda and everything on the website, but I don't
Yes.
think we need to modify anything in
it's
this.
posted on the post office in the town.
Right.
Yeah,
Oh,
that
yeah.
should be
We put the
fine.
dates up, but we don't have,
Yeah.
all we need to do is, we don't have to say we're gonna put the agenda or
The,
anything like that.
yeah, the notice, and I would recommend one time, Shannon, I think early on, when you came, you sent out an email on the Blast Town email service that basically said the agenda packet for the meeting of such and such is available on the website. I think that that's a good practice and we should keep doing that.
Yeah.
I don't know that it has to be put in our bylaws,
don't
but
have-
that, but
that's the
that,
point.
but that was a good practice because some people might not think
Yeah.
as a matter of course to go look at the website.
Yeah.
Is that something that's reasonable for you to do?
is there a certain time frame you're looking at for that?
I would say when the agendas are made available. When
Well, then
the,
it's supposed to be.
when the
certain-
agendas are made available,
Yeah,
which I think we'll talk about in a little, in
Yeah.
a minute,
2 or 3 pages on, we talk about that.
yeah. Okay, and so that's all for that one. On page 4. At the very end of the section was second section 4, now it's 5, that has to do with meetings. Okay. I'm suggesting that we have draft minutes plenty early to look at them before our meetings.
Yeah.
And so I'm suggesting that maybe if we could add something to the effect of draft minutes of select board meetings will typically be produced and distributed to the board members by the Friday following each meeting. So that means minutes from this meeting ought to go out on Friday, this Friday. And discussion and action to approve or amend meeting minutes will occur at the next regularly scheduled select board meeting. That would go at the end of, it would go on page 4, right before section 6, or section, right now it says section 5, public to address the board. It would go at the end of that paragraph up above that.
Oh, okay, got it. I was
I
trying
think
to follow that.
Yeah.
Let's see whether there's
So-
another place to put that.
And see, that has to, and that is, the only reason I put it there is that article seems to be dealing with meetings.
Yes,
Yeah, section 4 meetings. When we get later on in here, I would suggest that we amend these bylaws to say that generally meetings aren't gonna last more than 2 hours.
Yeah.
To do that, it would be handy if we had a chance to look at stuff ahead of time.
yeah, oh,
So that's why I've
Yep.
start drafting the minutes on the Friday following the meeting.
I think at some point there, I had read that we had. It was written down that we were supposed to have them by Thursday of the previous week, which was very hard to do.
Well, it was the Friday. Right now it says the agenda will be made available the Friday before the meeting. So that would be like for our next meeting, that would be next week, Friday.
Right.
I think that it's, yeah, I'm suggesting it moves up. I think that's too late.
You're talking about the minutes or the
No, I'm
whole,
talking about the whole agenda packet.
the whole packet?
Yeah,
Should, well,
Should
so,
we,
and getting the minutes early, then people can look at them. Also, the minutes may reflect things that we're going to take up at the next meeting.
so that's in section 7, the agenda items.
Yeah, that's coming up a little bit later.
Would it make sense to move section 7 about agenda items, follow the section about meetings?
you know,
Uh,
there's some sense to that.
that's, well, I mean, the next section here is public to address the board, so that sort of falls in the bailiwick of conducting the meeting. We could move them around, I thought it made sense the way it is, or we could move them back.
I'm okay
Also,
with it.
I think you had a good idea, but I don't think that it's crucial one way or the other.
I'm not
and
gonna
we
die
can
on
do
my
that,
own.
Let's keep it, let's keep it.
Okay. The section on public to address the board. The second paragraph that says citizens will be allowed. This is interesting because it's a little different than what we've been doing.
Mm,
Yeah.
One thing I think we need to change, we need to add minutes after 3. It's 3 minutes per person at the very end of that. And what this says is whenever we're considering action on a motion, that we should entertain public comments pertaining solely to that action.
Yes.
And I think that's a good idea. We haven't been doing that. It was in the
No,
bylaws before.
I think we should.
So MMA guidance, members of the public have the right to attend, have no right to participate unless the board allows participation,
Mhm.
or unless the meeting item is a public hearing. But then it goes on to say most municipalities, the public is allowed to speak on the business being conducted.
Mhm.
So I think these bylaws were written based on this guidance.
Mhm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I like the bylaws. I like what they say. I'm just suggesting that it's not what we've been doing.
It is not what, it varies, right?
Yeah, yeah,
It varies, right.
sometimes we do,
But I think
sometimes we don't.
As a practice, I think that's important,
Yes,
if we really want input.
yes. And it would be called for, but what has happened is people raise their hand.
Yeah.
You know, they called on, but just like we do board member discussion, after that discussion is over,
We ask
we
the
should
public.
request, is there any public comment on this agenda item?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which actually might help in the way we conduct the meeting. If we, as a board, are talking amongst ourselves first and then seek the public comment before we take action. Instead of having a dialogue back and forth, which is
Yes,
not
ma'am.
recommended.
Mm.
I think it may help speed up our 2-hour limits.
Mhm. Okay. And so that I would, the only change that needs to be done is 3 minutes per person on that one little paragraph there, Shannon, where it says citizens will be allowed to comment. It says the comments will be limited to 3 per person, should be 3 minutes per person.
It should be, yeah.
Does anybody else have anything more on the rest of this section on public comments? I don't.
I don't know.
I don't, however, we do talk about, public comments being limited to 15 minutes. Do we want to keep that in there?
Yeah.
Because if we do, then we should stick with it, and there are times that's just not appropriate.
The 15 minutes is for the total public comment section.
Right.
Yes. And I think it says if a member of the public asks for that time to be extended, then we can extend it. And we haven't been enforcing it. I think we certainly can if we're gonna try to stick with the 2-hour limit.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yes, I think that's good to enforce.
Hello.
Okay.
Wow.
Anything on
Get
section,
wet tonight.
anything on section 7, I'm already getting wet. I think it's condensation. Anything on section was 6, now 7 workshop sessions?
Yeah, this one is interesting because I know we talked about having workshop sessions, and I don't think anybody actually found any reference to it with MMA guidance.
No,
So I didn't know where this came from, because any meeting we have still has to, follow our requirements.
Yes, ma'am.
They have grown out of things for the complicated things like the discussion we had on the various means of getting over the years of getting internet into town. And then it was obviously something that wasn't gonna be settled in 15 minutes or 3 minute comments, and they're gonna be all over the place. I think that was a major reason for having something like this, but we haven't needed it lately.
So they still have to be noticed, because it's a public meeting.
Yes, they would have to be noticed.
And they're done periodically as needed. So what is the difference between a workshop session
You
and
wouldn't,
an
wouldn't have the-
extra?
you wouldn't be taking action. at
and
workshops.
you also wouldn't necessarily have the whole agenda as
Yeah,
it's laid
yeah,
out.
That's right.
previously.
It would be to, talk about the process for hiring the town manager, for example, to talk about the interview question or something to that effect. You know, it's to get more information out, is what I understand, is to get some information out that we're going to use at a future meeting, but we need to discuss and talk about.
But they still be noticed.
Yes,
It's not-
it's be noticed and the public's
It's still-
invited to
It's
this.
still public.
Yes.
There could be-
Do we,
We just don't need to accept, public
Yep,
comments.
yes, and what it says here is that it's optional to have public comments. And another thing is that if all we're doing is disseminating information, talking about plans, that's maybe something that people don't care to attend.
Yeah.
If there's not gonna be any action taken.
But there have been times we've really, that would have benefited us.
Yes,
To be able to do that.
yes,
So,
I can think of two purposes, having a workshop session instead of just an agenda item, and one would be urgency to have some information before an upcoming meeting. The other one might be because we would expect it to take too much time to make it one agenda item
yeah,
in a meeting.
so I'd suggest we add a little paragraph, if we can.
Okay.
Copy it from the meeting, section that says we will, they will be noticed at least 24 hours in advance where possible.
sure.
uh,
Why don't we say public notice will be published of any workshops, any workshop sessions in accordance with applicable law.
Yep.
Notice will
Just
be
to cover
published,
it.
yeah,
Yeah,
notice
yeah,
will
just
be
to-
published of any workshop session as required by applicable law.
Yep.
And you can put that at the end of the first paragraph or at the end of the second paragraph. I think it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. Okay.
We're gonna be amending bottom line there under agenda items.
Uh. Yes, yes, on section 7, now 8 agenda items. Tell me what you think about this. I'm thinking after the first sentence, a sentence that goes, request to add agenda items should include a brief statement outlining the requested action. So an agenda item would be, discuss an action plan for the, disposition of the 100-acre woods, was an example, just so we know, or do we want to have something that we're going to vote on? Is it something that we're going to discuss? Just briefly, what the purpose of the agenda item is, to buy whoever's sponsoring that agenda item or requesting it. And then what I would anticipate if there was an agenda item that came up, and if it was requested by the town manager, or if it was requested by Mary Ann, it would, I would suggest it start out that there's this agenda item that Mary Ann requested on there. Mary Ann, tell us what this is about. or
Right.
Shannon, tell us what this is about.
And why are we putting it on there and?
Yeah.
Do we need to take action?
Yeah.
for example?
So how about adding request to add agenda items should include a brief statement outlining the requested action?
Yep.
And that should means, nobody's gonna say, we're not putting it on the agenda because you didn't do that. It's just a want.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'll
It's a
keep,
framework that we hope
Yeah.
that should make it
Yeah.
more efficient. And then do we want to keep with the one? You didn't, the Friday before, we were talking about being too.
that was just for the Friday, like, let's talk about our next meeting on the 15th, okay? Putting an agenda out this Friday, which would be July 5th, that's way tough. But,
Right.
and it wouldn't even make any sense, because it wouldn't, things are gonna come up. But we would like to have the minutes from the last meeting distributed by July 5th. The agenda item or the agenda for the July 15th, meeting on that Tuesday, right now it says it should come out the previous Friday. I'm suggesting Thursday.
Thought we had discussed that at some point.
Yeah.
Last year, we went over and over this section because it was almost. It was being done too soon, I think. Like, it wasn't pragmatic to be able to
Yeah.
get the agenda done. Yeah, and the timeframes that were requested.
Oh, we didn't have Shannon.
Uh,
We didn't have Shannon.
That's right.
Well,
And I think the Thursday before the Tuesday meeting versus the Friday before the Tuesday meeting, it should be doable. And then the problem with the Friday before the Tuesday meeting is you get the stuff, close the business on Friday. Monday, the town office is closed. If there's anybody wants to do anything about it, I think Thursday's better.
I could subscribe to that.
Okay.
Is that doable if we get items to you Wednesday to turn it around and put a packet or a full agenda together by Thursday?
Depends on, I think, how much you're looking to get and supporting documents for it. Like if you're looking to get a request for proposals the next day, I don't know if that will be feasible. But if there's certain things, I may be able to get that. If you
So,
want me to reach out to a bunch of companies and get
Yeah.
like some info, it might not be
Yeah.
feasible. But some discussion and some things we can get, I think.
But, for example, Shannon, can you publish the warrants, the disbursement warrants
Yes.
on Thursday? That go with the next Tuesday's meeting instead of doing it on Friday? Okay,
I think so.
Right,
yeah.
Right now, I do the warrants on Thursdays,
okay.
and then they get posted on Friday. We can do those sooner.
Mhm.
It's just a matter of when the receipts come in and how soon.
I'd like to get a copy of a warrant to look at before, like we didn't have one for
Tonight.
for this meeting ahead of time. I'd like the warrants that we're going to take action on Tuesday. I'd like to be able to get those by close of business the preceding Thursday. So then we have Friday to look at it, and Saturday and Sunday.
So if we're gonna back up. Shannon getting everything, the packet together by close of business Thursday. Should we back up to our agenda items instead of by close of business Wednesday to close of business Tuesday to give you 2 days?
That's what I was wondering, but
Yeah,
that's also a full week before the meeting.
yeah,
Yeah,
So that gets to be hard. My sense is that we should be trying to get everything as soon as
Okay.
possible, but Wednesday is a deadline. So if you think that you're gonna be asking for something that's complicated, you should darn well get it to
Mhm.
Shannon early.
well, I think if we're asking for proposals or those things that you talked about, we should be talking about that like a week ahead of time.
Right.
Like today, as an example, today, if we were talking about, we really need to get a proposal out for appraisal services, which I think is already done, but we could talk about that today and say, we'd like to have that done by the next
For
meeting.
the next meeting.
Yeah.
So we're leaving it at getting things to Shannon by close of business Wednesday, and Shannon will do her magic and get everything out to distribution, close of business.
Thursday.
Yes. There is one comment online,
Yes, ma'am.
regarding on page 5, and the third paragraph down, it's under the public to address board.
Yes, ma'am.
So regarding that, it was just the prohibition on written statements at the select board meetings and saying they need to be submitted the Wednesday before, which is before the agenda is available. They said, I think the select board would like to have comments in writing.
Yes.
Which paragraph is that in?
The third,
The third,
It's the third paragraph. I understand the idea of that paragraph being whatever somebody gives us at a select board meeting, here's a written document. We don't have time to read it and consider
assess
it
it,
for
yeah.
our action at that meeting. So you might as well not even bring it because we don't have time to read it and consider it and have an efficient meeting. And so I think what it's saying is that written materials we should receive ahead of time. Also, I think if we're talking about, we're going to consider an ordinance, changing an ordinance, like we're gonna consider a treasurer's ordinance. And that goes out ahead of time for people to look at, so they can come in public comments. If somebody has a lot of comments on that, I think it would be handy to have those in writing, but it has to be ahead of time. They can't come to the meeting. And, I don't know if that comment came from Ken or not. But,
it did. and
it did, but he has sent me comments before in advance. And I found them extremely helpful. And if those comments were sent to you, they could be distributed to everybody. I remember what has happened in the past is Ken would send me a comment the day before the meeting, which was extremely helpful, but then nobody else had it.
Right.
And
Yeah.
well, why don't we put a. What you're saying is we just need to change that first sentence to say. They will not accept them distributed at a select board meeting, but they should be provided a week in advance or something like that.
Or, yes. I think they should be provided sufficiently in advance to make it with the Thursday publication of the agenda. When we get an agenda on
Right.
Thursday,
Okay,
it would be nice if we had those comments.
Yeah.
So each of us could have an opportunity to look at them over the weekend
right.
and think about it before the meeting.
Could we change to go back to that, select board will not accept written materials to the select board will not act on written materials distributed at the select board meeting?
That would be fine, or not consider written, or not act. Act is better. Act is better. Will not act on.
And anyone who desires are submit written materials.
And
What is this? So no later than.
yeah, that's what it says. Send
Yeah.
it to us by noon on Wednesday before the meeting.
Yeah,
Which would make sense. I mean, that,
Yeah.
so that's all sort of.
Does that answer Ken's question?
Ken's asking if we can speak.
Sure.
Okay, this is Ken Spalding, and my question really is, what's the difference between considering a verbal statement at a meeting and a written statement at a meeting? I guess I was thinking that the written statement would actually be more time efficient than the verbal statement.
Well, Ken, what it's saying is we won't accept the written material to be distributed at the meeting. If you give me a 2-page written material to all of us, we've got to take time from our meeting and our actions to read it. If you can write 2 pages, write it and send it to us on the Wednesday before the meeting. And then we'll have a chance to read it and think about it and give it
Yeah.
and address it more fairly
where
and comprehensively.
speaking 2 pages worth of a statement
Yeah.
would take you 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the bylaws provide for 3-minute public comments after board deliberations and before action on any agenda item. And I think that's fine, but you might not be able to get your point across in 3 minutes, and you might want us to give it more thought than we would give it if we were just sitting here listening to you. And if that's the case, send it to us in writing by the Wednesday before. Does that seem unreasonable?
Well, will the agenda be out before the Wednesday before?
Uh,
Oh, well,
So I think
Okay,
we're
that's- yeah.
getting a bit wrapped around the axle
Yeah.
here, because I think what, I'm not gonna speak for Ken.
Yeah.
But I think what Ken wants to do is see the agenda and then have the ability to comment on it
Sure.
before the meeting, which as board members, we don't have the opportunity to even
Yeah.
to do that. That's,
Yeah.
seems like that's putting the public before the select board consideration of whatever the agenda item is.
It's great that he wants to have the ability to share comments for consideration prior. But at the same time, I'm sure there are a number of people who bring comments, ask questions, and it's very contemporaneous. It's just in the room as the conversation's going on, and I've got a thought to add. So great, we could submit things in advance, but we won't be able to necessarily act on it. I don't think we're gonna change the schedule we just came up with when we can get the agenda out, because the agenda is still being formulated, so we can't send it out too early, right? So we'll do the best we can, but submit your questions if you have them, or your comments. But otherwise, I don't know how to tweak it to make it more perfect on both sides.
yeah.
The other thing I would offer is that we're not saying you cannot submit
Right.
We'll just
written
say-
materials on
Yeah.
Friday
Yeah.
that can be
Yeah.
disseminated.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just that there, you know, at that point, we can't promise that those written comments
Right.
will, we can't promise that they would be acted on. But if someone wanted to, we're not saying you're not permitted to submit written comments.
And if it's a big enough issue, it's probably gonna be multiple meetings anyway, so we'll get the comments.
And it's probably gonna be expected with people. That such a thing is gonna be on the. All right, well. Where do you end up on it?
I think we-
So do we want to say Friday before the next scheduled select board meeting instead of the Wednesday before? Now, that still doesn't give you a lot of time, Ken. It's, the agenda's published on Thursday and comments are due on Friday.
Yes, but it is better than not knowing what the agenda is going to be, so you can't submit any
Okay.
comments at all.
So let's change Wednesday to Friday. How does that sound to everybody?
Change which exactly?
What we said is, if Ken doesn't send us something, but whatever he wants us to think about, he needs to send us by Wednesday. He says, that's the problem for me, because you don't tell me what you're doing until Thursday.
Which makes all the sense in the world. The other question here too, not to do this to you, Shannon, is that this also says to go back, even though we've already talked about this as a group. This goes to you, Henry,
Mhm.
and then you would be disseminating
Yeah.
it or deciding upon it and moving on it. Should
Yeah.
we then say it goes to the town manager?
Yeah, I could go, I'd send it both places. We should say both. Send it to the town manager and send it to
The chair.
the chair. If they want to, they can put it on distribution to the select board, but I
Well,
think,
that would be the most helpful.
okay, yeah. Put it on the email to the town manager and the select board, and if it comes to somebody and not everybody else, just pass it along. And I don't know that we need to actually put that in the bylaws if we have an agreement to that effect.
So I'm.
But we should change the Wednesday to Friday.
So in the third full paragraph. Sort of in the middle of the page, that Wednesday, we're gonna change to Friday.
Yes, ma'am.
I also suggest we change, chair of the select board to town manager and select board.
That's fine. I think that makes perfect sense. Attention to the town manager and select board. That's in the third line.
Right. Okay. And that
So,
becomes
Can
Friday.
we go back to where we were in the agenda items, which is currently listed as section 7 on
Yes,
page 6?
Yes,
So if you follow along, partway through, it says in the event that a matter shall arise that was not submitted in the proper time frame. So what this is getting to is if there's something that wasn't given to Shannon in time to be on the agenda, our process to put something onto the agenda happens, it requires a vote of the board members. So that means I think we would have to change our regular agenda items to be something that allows for a review of the agenda in case we have to vote to add an agenda item in. When are we gonna do it?
So you're suggesting just adding something to the list of, or you're adding a 14th to the list of 13 somewhere in there and say, are there any additional items that are under consideration to be added to the agenda?
Yeah, we don't have a place in which we can vote
Right.
to add something to the board
Well,
in
section
accordance with that
4, we can make it
language,
5.
so probably right after the conflict of interest and before the meeting minutes, review agenda.
that, or we could do that, or it could go under, if it's new business, Hazlet could go right into new business. We go A, B, C. And it would be, there was a request to consider this item, which is not on the agenda. Does
Right.
anybody object to that? And then if nobody objected, I would probably say, okay, there's an agreement by consensus to consider it.
So
There we go.
what,
If somebody wants to vote, we'll vote.
what that means is
What do
that
you
we will publish on Thursday after, after you've received all the requests. And basically, nothing will change. The agenda will not change at that point,
That's
and
right.
anything additional won't be,
It'll be an
we'll
item.
vote on it and decide whether we have time and want to.
What to do.
I like that.
Yes, yes.
So this language says it requires a majority vote
But we can leave it that way.
to include it on the agenda.
Or we could, why don't we say to consider it at the meeting? Because
Yeah.
what's the point?
Yes,
The
that makes
agenda's
more
already done.
sense.
Instead to include it on
Right.
the agenda. Where is that? In the event a matter shall rise, which is not submitted to the town manager within the proper time frame, then that item shall be presented to the chair as soon as possible. The chair may present the matter to be considered by the board with the majority vote of the board members present required for it to be acted on at the meeting.
I'd love to put that through AI to reword that.
Well, the only thing I did
That's
is,
what it's saying.
yeah, the only thing I changed is at the
Right.
very 4 words, instead of to be included on the agenda, to be acted on at the meeting.
Right,
That's all I changed for those 4 words.
Okay. Well, why would we not leave it on put it as an agenda item?
Time limits. Not
Well,
clear.
because the agenda's something that's published ahead of time telling us what we're going to be acting on. And if we can't decide at the meeting, if it doesn't get on the agenda until we're actually in the meeting, what's the point in putting it on? the
No,
agenda?
I'm not.
Okay.
No, I'm suggesting that we would have an agenda item to modify the agenda.
Oh, that's fine.
But-
If you
but it doesn't
wanna do
matter.
that, Yeah,
you mean versus doing it in new business.
yeah, that's fine. We can do
Yeah,
that.
and the rationale would be, we've reviewed these every year for, I don't know, I mean, I reviewed them first time, last time, but no, I've never
The-
seen them actually
Before,
actually
okay,
follow that.
but between 11 and 12 on this agenda that we're looking at, between 11 and 12, why don't we say additional business? What do you think about that?
Sure.
Well, I think it will raise questions about what's the difference between new business and additional business when. I'm just
Well,
trying to
that's why I
come
was
up with a
gonna,
mechanism that says
would
we're
put
gonna
it
review the
between-
agenda to see if there's something
Yeah.
else we want to add to the agenda in considering these bylaws say that that's what we're gonna
Okay.
do.
I would put it between 8 and 9.
8 and 9.
Old business, new business, additional business.
Yes, okay, I was looking at our current agenda, which has some stuff
Oh.
in there that's off. Yes, ma'am,
I'm
yes, ma'am, but
looking
that actually what I
Page
had.
3.
Old business, new business, additional business, then public comments. Under our under what's in the bylaws, but,
Okay,
but,
yeah, after new business comes supplements and abatements.
okay, so
So,
we didn't have any of those today.
oh, okay, yeah, and you're still
I'm
looking
still
at,
looking at today's agenda,
current
let me go
agenda.
back and
it's
find
on
where.
page 3.
I don't know. In my business world, what we do is we look at the agenda and we decide if
Okay.
we need to add anything to the agenda. I was just
Yeah.
trying to provide a similar mechanism without,
That's right,
without it
Okay,
getting really like
right,
complicated.
yeah,
Because that's essentially what this is saying is the chair's gonna present it and the board's gonna decide, do we want to add an
Right.
agenda item that was missed?
so I was looking at a silly place, I was looking at this week's agenda instead of the bylaws. What numbers are you suggesting you go between, Hazel?
4 and
Between,
5,
between 4 and 5?
yeah, that's a normal place.
and it's just a placeholder to review the agenda, and then it's the opportunity, if something has come to you that wants to be added, then you can call a vote, do we want to add discussing
Yeah.
blah-de-blah on today's
Okay.
agenda?
So we want to put another number in there and you're suggesting that we call that review agenda.
Yep.
I'm fine
Sure,
with
yeah,
that.
that's what we do.
Is that okay with you, Mary Ann?
Yes, and that might be better, because if
Okay.
there's something that's burning and if, to leave it until after the new business, we might end up having to table new business
yeah,
because something
yeah.
else is more important that we've added at the.
Good point, I hadn't thought of that, but you're right.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Question,
I
however,
was,
Conflict of interest question, was that asked even today, specific to any of the agenda items?
It-
Yes, it was.
Okay, so
Yeah.
then should conflict of interest follow the finalization of the agenda?
It's, yeah,
yes,
All right, we'll insert it between 3 and 4.
yes. Good catch.
I'm thinking our 2 hours might be unrealistic.
That's why I said time limit on these extra things you're gonna add in. No.
Okay, Shannon, so here's the deal. My understanding is between 4 and 5, we're going to add a new one and renumber the rest, and between
3 and
between 3 and 4, we're going to add review agenda.
Yes.
Got it?
Yep.
All right.
Thank you,
Okay.
that was fun.
Where were we at?
Verified
Uh,
section.
I'm just
Who
an old
knows?
man, I can't
Just
remember
passed
that.
pledge of allegiance.
So this last paragraph on page 6, is this
Yes,
now
ma'am.
redundant? Town manager will post and distribute agendas to all board members by close of business on Friday before each meeting.
Well, that's one we said we're gonna change to Thursday.
Right.
But it was, but
I
it,
thought we just talked about that in a different session.
we did.
Oh,
Yeah, in which case we just delete this.
It's also on the previous page, third full paragraph down.
okay, well, if we got it in there someplace else, we don't need it 2 places.
Yeah. Okay,
I don't see anything in that third paragraph down on page 5 that says the agenda is published on Thursdays.
Where was it? Is it page?
Submit written materials to the board's attention.
Yeah, it's not in there on that one.
That's not I thought it was previous to this too.
I think we simply turned back to go back to the earlier paragraphs, and now we're seeing it again as we're going
Yeah.
forward again.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I think we should take at the very bottom of page 6. The only thing we need to change in that, I think, is we need to change the Friday to a Thursday.
Okay.
Okay.
My mistake.
Got that? Shannon?
Just a little Groundhog Day in that paragraph, I think.
Yes.
Anything on hearings?
I didn't notice anything.
One of the things that we haven't been doing that I think this is in there is if we have these adjudicatory or licensing hearings, like a special permit for whatever it is, when we have that hearing, we need to send notice, of course, we send it anyway to whoever's making the application. But the hearing should start out with allowing the applicant to explain what they want and why they want it. If the issue is a special amusement permit for Jellystone to have fireworks, and there's a public hearing on that, the public hearing ought to open with the person who wants the permit, Mr. Jellystone. Tell us what you want and why you want it. And that makes sense for what a hearing is all about. And it also would help avoid some things about people saying, well, I don't know, do they want this? Do they want that? Do they want this? Are they gonna have a sheriff? And so, I just, I think when we start a hearing, we ought to explain what this hearing is about before the first person even speaks. What this hearing is about, if it's somebody wanting a license to do something, they're the movement, they're moving for that. Let them take the floor and explain what they want and why they want it. And then we open it up to other people.
That's
If-
the way
if-
the planning board does it.
Yeah.
Yeah, if that person is there.
If that person's there, and if they don't
Right.
show up, then they're not, then we don't do that. Yeah.
Okay,
So would you add
No,
something?
no, we don't,
in
no,
here?
I think that's kind of already in there. We're just
Yeah.
discussing that
Okay.
we haven't been doing that. No, I don't think we need to change anything. I didn't have anything on the whole rest of it.
On section 9, I have one question here. It says no member may participate or vote, including blah, 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 unless the member was present during all hearings thereon.
Mhm.
Now, that means by a subordinate group or only hearings before the select board?
No, I think it's all the hearings before the select board. And what we're saying is if there's public hearings and then next week or the next meeting, we take action on it, somebody who wasn't here for the public hearing shouldn't be allowed to vote on the action. And so if we need to make that more clear, that I don't believe that that's saying that we all have to go to planning board hearings. I think what it's saying is that if we have a hearing and then we don't act on it until the next week or the next meeting, somebody who wasn't at the hearing shouldn't vote on the issue.
So doesn't that mean we do all have to go to?
I think it's hearings here in this, hearings before the select board hearings. No member may participate or vote, and I'm suggesting we change it. No member may participate or vote in any adjudicatory proceeding, including proceedings on licenses, permits, or other approvals, unless the member was present during all select board
Okay.
hearings.
Then,
Okay.
fair enough. Good.
yeah, thank you.
I'm sure that's the intent.
Okay, good.
I would think so. But it's good to clarify.
Yes. So that gets inserted between all and hearings, Shannon. And then as I flip through here, I noticed that I was a liar. I do have another comment.
Well, this says we're gonna adjourn at or before 9 o'clock.
Oh,
I
I think,
thought it was stated somewhere,
yes,
but that's 2.5.
but I think if we do 2 hours, that's 8:30. Isn't that
Right.
better?
Yep,
That's better.
Must be.
I think we
And when
should say 2
Shannon
hours,
convinces us to start at 6
then it's 8,
PM,
but
we're not gonna add.
no, it's 2 hours.
Yeah,
Yeah, but I also think if we need to stay longer, then we can decide to. But if
Mhm.
somebody wants to take a vote on it and 3 people say, no, I've had enough of this, then we're done. We don't extend past the 2 hours.
so we're gonna take out the time and put in 2 hours.
2 hours, yes.
So,
Oh, where was that at? Yes, I know,
Section 10
yes.
being section 11
Yep.
as we rewrite this.
That's what, yeah, I had a comment in there. That's where I said I was a liar. Board meeting, what I said is to put in there, board meetings and workshops should generally not exceed 2 hours. Any extensions require the consensus of board members or approval by a majority vote if requested. What do you think about that?
That's good.
okay, yeah.
I have a little paper that I can give you on that. Yeah.
Well,
And I was, trying to be so neat. I put it on a little slip
yeah.
and then I missed it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. The other,
You're very clever.
the other lie that I told you was section 15. On that one, on legal counsel. I think we probably want to add the chair of the planning board and the chair of the appeals board to those people that can request, opinions from Maine Municipal Association. That's section 15.5 on page 9.
Okay, sounds good.
Planning board and which one?
The chair of the planning board and chair of the appeals board. And that's a free legal advice, that we're not saying that they can call up our lawyers and run up the town's bills. Anything else? that
Well, yeah,
anybody-
this is a pragmatic thing. So we've passed over section 13, which is the oath of office,
Uh-huh.
which says at first board meeting in July, it will be administered by the town clerk or his designee.
Uh-huh.
We didn't. We should probably acknowledge that
Well,
Tom has joined us and he's done his oath, but it wasn't done at the meeting.
meeting.
So we need to change this language if that's gonna be
yeah, why don't we just
Practice.
say, at or before the first meeting in July? At or before. The reason I say that is right now, there's nobody here to give him an oath unless we had Kathy come. Because Shannon hasn't been designated as a deputy clerk, and the statute says it's gotta be a clerk, a deputy clerk, or someone that's authorized to administer oaths, so I guess maybe just a notary could do it. But that's why we had Tom go over to the office and see
Right.
Kathy today.
so I'm okay with changing at or before.
At or before?
Works for me.
Good.
All right, and Shannon, if you could make those changes and send them out to us sometime before the next meeting, so we have a chance to look at them. Then when we come to the meeting, it should just be a breeze of
Yeah.
moving to accept it as changed.
Well, one small question. Okay, I'm all set. Yes, all set, good.
Okay. Next item is consider approval of the annual town meeting minutes for June 10th, 11th, 2025. Did we get those to look at?
The minutes? they
Yeah.
should Be in here?
They're not in my pocket, I'm afraid.
Oh. I've got a select.
Oh, I've got the
Here's one.
minutes, I've got the minutes from the 24th, but on the
Not the town.
agenda,
Oh, I just have one copy for the town. But just to
You-
save on paper, and same thing with the confirmation of the contract,
no, the
Okay,
contract
since
is
it
long.
was posted.
So the town meeting, is that time sensitive? Because I wouldn't mind looking at it
Yeah.
electronically,
yeah,
but I don't feel comfortable. I mean, we can have a motion and then make the discussion and vote, but I don't feel comfortable approving something that I haven't read.
I agree.
Yeah, me as well.
So we're just gonna move those to the next meeting. And I'd say the same thing about the meeting minutes, unless I just saw them. The meeting on the 24th. That's a little, I mean, that's less. So I guess we can do the meeting on the 24th if you want to do that today. Or I would sure that, I would sure like to have that ahead of time to review.
So move to July 5th, 15th?
Yes. We'll move both of those to July 15th.
So the difference is, we don't have a copy of the town meeting minutes. We do have a copy of the select board
Okay.
meeting minutes.
Well, if you
Just if you
want to
want to
read
take
that
the
now,
time
that's
to read
okay.
it.
Okay.
So this says approve the annual, excuse me, select board, that's right, never mind. Take that back. And I apologize, I intended to be here and I couldn't get in.
Well, so what's the deal here?
We're reviewing the minutes,
Right,
I
right.
believe, yes. So just go ahead and take a look at them now.
I think everything sooner as it improves our ability to remember what was done too. Move we accepted the minutes as drafted for June 24th.
I think we're still reading.
Oh, okay.
Okay, second, discussion,
I will abstain, I wasn't here.
vote, All in favor? Motion carries.
Oh.
Who was the second?
I
Mary Ann
seconded,
seconded it.
but, I don't think Tom
Was
can
I was
vote on
gonna
that one
say, I
either.
wasn't the select board member.
Okay.
I doubt
Okay,
it.
motion passes
With three.
with 3 votes, 2 abstentions.
Yeah.
For members who are absent at the meeting.
Yep, that's.
Do we have the warrant?
We're not doing any warrants tonight.
So we're tabling?
You don't have any so we're not sending out any checks until after the next meeting.
We just had one last week.
Okay, yeah.
Um,
So,
Wait. But this one about accepting a donation?
that's a separate thing. There's the next item on the agenda is the town has received a donation tendered. It was a cash donation to supplement the existing appropriation for Lad Center recreation programs.
Mhm.
That's money that was contributed probably by the Lad Foundation.
I can move the select board accept a cash donation in the amount of $20,010 to supplement. the existing
20,010?
Appropriation for the Lad Recreation Center programs.
20,010.
You can set up, put that money in.
Yep, we have an appropriation
Done,
for
right?
Lad Center programs of $4,300. And that's the one that we're supplementing.
I'll second that.
We also have a reserve account for Lad Center. Okay, any discussion by the board members?
No.
Discussion from the public comments regarding this motion? All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. The next item on the agenda is to consider accepting a donation, cash donation in the amount of $1,000 to supplement the existing appropriation for the Wayne Athletic League.
So move.
Second,
Any discussion by the board members? Do we have an appropriation on the Wayne Athletic League, like for the Lad Center? Okay. Any public comments on this before we vote? Okay, all in favor? Motion carries 5-0. Next item is old business. Consider the Community Action Grant Award Contract in the amount of $75,000. I'm going to let Shannon take this and tell us what's going on.
Yep, so this is the community action grant that was presented, I think it was back in December of 2024 to the select board. That it was a small working group that put it together, and then there was a grant application group of 3 individuals, one of which was a representative from Grow, Maine, the other being members of Conservation Commission, and that also included Paula Narcessian, who is the project coordinator designee. And so she's going to be taking the lead and doing the day-to-day action on any of this, and then working with myself to make sure that the reports get submitted. The first report would be on July 15th, and the only report that requires is an update that the contract would be signed. From there on forward, in the contract, it just outlines the proposal that was submitted by the group, the grant group. Basically outlining their timeline from now until May 14th of 2026. And so in those next few months, I believe the first 2 months include the RFP process. And so if this is accepted, then the grant group will start working on putting together a request for proposals for a hydrology vulnerability assessment consultants. And then once that is received and approved, then they will begin their process of collecting data and working with different stakeholders. And they have partnered with several community organizations to include the 30 Mile Watershed, Cobbossee Watershed, Friends of the Cobbossee Watershed, and multiple others, including DOT and the not university, but the Marana Cook Schools. So they've also submitted letters of support for this. And so working with those stakeholders, it's basically to assess the vulnerability of, or vulnerable people and residents in the community and how climate change might affect them. And so this could be informing for the comprehensive plan. That is something that will be coming up in the next year or two, is forming a comprehensive planning committee and then using certain assessments and things to help inform where the town of Wayne would like to go. Although Paula was unable to attend tonight, she did want to share her support and recommends approval for this project.
Ken was also available as a proxy, should there be any questions, right?
Yes, and Ken is online.
I don't think there are any questions at this stage. So,
To make a motion?
I'd like to move we
I'd like
approve.
to ask a question.
Oh,
So in accepting this grant, is that committing us to any future expenses?
no,
No, the only thing that they had outlined in here was volunteer time, and they put that into the cost of the overall project, but that was incorporated into it, and they just put a dollar amount on it, but other than that, no actual taxable dollars.
What-
So no operational costs will pop up down the road that are related or any additional costs?
Correct.
Is it a? So we got caught on the reimbursement grant on the courts project. Is this a similar model where we have to commit money?
No, they should be, once they actually sign this contract, they will disperse funds for this project. And so the RFP will be based on those funds, and so on that, it should be within the 75,000.
If you read the paperwork, what it says, or at least what I understood it to say, is the town's obligation is 10%. But that obligation can be met with services in kind, the administrative time of the town office to do these reports and town volunteers. And they have all that factored into a schedule where they've given credit for it. So there's no money out of pocket. And I believe the product that we get, like you're right, Hazel, on the tennis courts, we had to upfront the money, which was a problem. And then the tennis court also, and I don't see it as a problem, but that certainly should have been put out on the table for the town. The tennis court encompassed the continuing obligation of the town to maintain it.
Mhm.
This, all we're getting from this, my understanding is a study. A study that tells us what the vulnerabilities are of the town dams. Is that fair?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so they did a breakdown for a total value of $7,500 is what Henry was just
Yeah.
talking about, the 10%. So town resources being the time contribution of the town manager along with town data and administrative resources at an estimated value of 3,500. And then project volunteers. So the time of project volunteers with relevant expertise, including contributions from members of the Conservation Commission and a sustainability consultant of the steering committee, with an estimated value of about $4,000. And so they calculated that into the overall amount.
And you have resources, Shannon, to take care of what you're agreeing to do with the town employees there. right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, we need a motion and then we can have discussion. Do we have a
The
motion?
motion.
no, I was just doing it when you had a question. I move that the board approves the Community Action Grant 24-25 or 24-5 award contract in the amount of $75,000 and appropriate Conservation Commission for the purposes of conducting a town of Wayne hydrology vulnerability assessment.
Second.
Okay, board member discussion. Any more board member discussion? No. Town manager, you've told us everything you have to say. Public comment on this before we vote. Yes,
I was wondering, this study,
we're gonna follow the rules. Tell us who you are.
oh, Mark Hartwell, sorry.
No, that's good.
Could this study impact somebody that, would it change the potential flood zone mapping? Could it put somebody in a flood zone? Could it affect flood insurance?
But
Yeah.
that's what it's kind of designed to be looking at, where the vulnerable areas are the bridges sound? Right, who's in a flood zone right now, and is there any mitigation that should be taken to make sure that that doesn't be in a worse situation? So we're gonna get an independent assessor, somebody who's gonna come out here and do this as much as they can do for $75,000, because They won't be able to do everything. But for $75,000, you can be looking where we have the prioritized issues across the town. And whether we act on that assessment, whether we find something that is, we really decide that we need to act on it, that would be where other things would come up for consideration and approval and discussion amongst the town. We think we need to replace, you know, the Mill Pond Dam. We think,
Was there-
the bridge is gonna wash away, there's a flood zone, you know, the level of the lakes are going up and we need to do something about that, so. That's all this is, and we had to put together a proposal to earn this. I know, as Shannon said, there was a small team of people. Ben was on the committee, I think you're aware, right? So you must have had some dinner conversations with him about some of this stuff too, right? It's interesting.
My
Oh.
question is just,
Yeah.
is that, this study change
Yeah.
somebody's flood insurance, I guess?
What Mark is asking is, could this identify a risk that was not previously known that might make some change? I don't know the answer to that.
Mhm.
But hey, if there's a risk, do I want to not know about it? Because it might change the floodplain. I would think I would like to know what the actual floodplain is.
Does the boundary of the floodplain, doesn't that have to be?
FEMA's gonna do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they take this and they say,
Yeah.
oh, hey, we got new information now.
Yeah.
Or this should be here, someone else had to do it, so there's someone else who was connected with that as, other than just.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be like
We don't know who they are
USGS?
yet.
Yeah, it's gonna-
Insurance companies use USGS or something along those
Well,
lines.
FEMA's gonna determine the floodplain from what I understand, but that's way beyond the scope of what I know anything about. On whether this could actually affect it. I don't have an answer for you, Mark. It doesn't. I can tell you that it wouldn't affect how I feel about it if the option was, I don't want to hear bad news.
I wouldn't think that this would rise to the level of insurance companies.
So,
Just my-
voted on this yet, or?
So,
It's been
any
seconded.
other, yes, we're ready to vote unless any board members have final, input? Nope, let's vote. All in favor? Motion passes 5-0. New business, I would like to move discuss boards and committees to the end of the new business and go to B first. Consider approving update to the policy for approval of the treasurer's disbursement warrants for state fees collected by the municipality. This is the deal that we have to do once a year that permits one board member to approve certain warrants. There's two types of warrants. One is for payroll and the other is for disbursements for state fees collected. Those policies have to be updated and redone each year. And so item 11B is to approve and update the policy to permit one select board member to approve those disbursement warrants for state fees collected by the municipality.
Is that a one-time?
It's a, no, it's
It's every-
periodic.
every
Yes,
warrant,
yes, Every
every
warrant.
I-
And I think the idea is that the scheduling of our meetings may make it impractical to get payroll out on time or to make these payments to the state on time. And so for those two things, the law allows us to adopt a policy that lets one of us approve it to let the checks go out, but then it still comes up at the next meeting for discussion.
And so my question was, I think that I recalled last year that it would just have to be one of us. It wasn't that one of us would take on that responsibility.
No, it's any one of us.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
That's
I wasn't sure what you were saying.
That's
Yeah,
one
yeah.
of 3 options,
yeah.
and the moment the policy is that any one of us could do it.
Okay.
So
And
I'm
that-
I'm looking at the motion and the motion is to move to approve the update. I was just questioning the motion, the suggested motion before I make it.
Okay.
Because are we updating it or are we adopting?
Well, we're really adopting it for next year.
Because I think the only
The,
update is to
Yeah.
add, to change,
Change the names.
change the names, right?
Yeah,
yes,
is that true? That seemed to be the case.
So
Yes.
I'm okay with, I just wanted to make sure before I make the motion, what I was making a motion about. So I didn't see any other
Okay.
updates in here. So, move to approve the update to policy for approval of the treasurer's disbursement warrants with state fees collected by the municipality.
Second,
any discussion by board members? Comments from the public? Let's vote, all in favor? Motion passes 5-0. The next item is the exact same thing for approval of warrants for payroll.
move to approve it, the update to policy on treasurer's disbursement warrants for employee wages and benefits.
Second.
Any discussion by board members? Public comments?
I thought I saw ones in school could get paid too, through that, no, but.
Those are the only two, state fees and payroll. All in favor? Motion passes 5-0. Okay, item A of new business, which we skipped by, is discuss board and committee appointments.
And I didn't bring the spreadsheet with me. I was hoping.
No, I didn't either, so sorry.
I got it. I got one.
I didn't print mine on side.
It looks miserable on a cell phone.
I just had a question, that was brought up. And I thought we didn't have a copy, I'm sorry.
Wanna look
Now
at
you're
that?
gonna. Okay, sure, let me see if I can find where I was looking. For example, there was, one board in which everybody was, there was
Yeah.
yeah, there was a full slate, but there was also an application. This is the Conservation Committee. Oh,
Okay.
except for the secretary.
Yeah.
So my question is about process. How do we know that these folks, and I think we touched on this last year, how do we know that these folks all want to continue?
We know, at least for the Conservation Commission, we know that.
Okay,
So the
so-
third term would be whatever it is. And
Leslie is leaving?
No, she's
Oh.
gonna do it for another 20.
Okay,
2 years or
28.
whatever.
So Lorraine,
Yeah.
put in an application. Do we just add to the committee?
Yeah, because the
Well,
committee's understaffed at the moment.
how many members are on the Conservation Commission right now?
I think 7.
That's it.
May I
That's what,
speak?
that's what,
Thank
Where
you.
is he? Yeah.
yeah.
This Ken Spalding.
Yes.
We currently have 6 members on the Conservation Commission. There is one vacant position where can have up to 7. But Lorraine Ravis is applying to be an associate member, not a full member of the commission. So she would not have voting power, but she would be considered an associate member.
Is there something? We don't have a Conservation Commission ordinance that I've found. Is that your understanding, Ken?
That's correct. We were operating under a state statute that
State statute.
yeah.
In the state statute, I don't recall having a provision for associates, does it?
Yes, it does.
Okay,
They are not alternates. They cannot vote if the commission members are missing. But they are associate members who can participate in any other way.
okay. Has the Conservation Commission taken a vote to move to admit an associate member?
Yes,
Okay,
we have an associate member currently, which is Fred Hurley. And Lorraine Ravis has applied for and has the support of the Conservation Commission. She is attending meetings currently.
okay.
So can you clarify? You said you're understaffed. You've got six members and 1 vacancy?
That's
Just show
correct.
that there's 7 members.
And this
Well-
appointment won't change that because.
So you got
because she's
6
not-
voting members.
Yeah.
And a vacancy?
Oh, I see Fred is the associate. I was
So
counting.
so you're still short one, Ken,
Right.
correct?
That's right.
We are
Is-
short one
Yeah,
commission.
one member.
We
one
can
member.
add as many associate members as we want or you want.
Okay,
We currently have one and Lorraine would be a second.
yeah.
Should we be noting that there's a vacant position in there?
I would think we,
Well,
that might have been part of my confusion.
Yeah, it is also not a requirement that we have 7. It's you can have between 3 and 7. We would prefer to have a full complement of 7.
We're looking at it, actively looking.
okay.
But, okay, but Lorraine will not provide you that full slate.
Correct.
Got it. Okay.
Now, one other thing that's interesting is to go back one, is that this it has a building committee on it, which hasn't done anything for a long time. And has a report, which everybody is too concerned about to share with us.
Well, I
And I
don't know about
find
that.
that a little odd, but I wonder if some of these building issues, the town office and the town, would it be wise to revivify this committee in the view of a few people have asked a question, are we gonna do something about the firehouse someday? Are we gonna do something about the town select board? It would be nice to know what the previous thing said, but a lot of things have changed right now, so that maybe there's a need to do at least a meeting and find out what's needed on that score.
I'd take one of those and pass it on down. This is something that I did after I got the list of spreadsheets from Shannon.
Okay.
Okay, is Betsy Clark one of the ones that are looking tonight? Okay, because I did get an email from her
Oh.
about this.
There's a BC on here.
Okay, that's probably it. What this is, and it doesn't address who we put on what tonight, but our situation with boards, I think, is somewhat confusing. We've got some lists of boards on the spreadsheet that I don't think there's any board for. We have, as you see there, I have these boards listed and are they on the appointment list? There's 3 of them that are not on the appointment list. But they're on the town website. Or on the town report or not. And then we got a road committee that I don't think we have one that's been appointed that I know of. But, and so we don't have a road committee anywhere, but we do have a charge for a road committee.
Well,
That's-
we
isn't
spun
that
up
the
a-
group that what's his face is in charge of?
We spun up a road committee last year, at the
Yeah.
same time we did the town manager hiring committee and the
Charge,
ordinance
what's his
and
name?
policy thing that you did, Henry, so we have a road committee.
Tom Barden?
Before you and I were on the board,
Huh,
Or
that's
after-
what we were-
Asking if there was
Oh.
a charge.
I think it was before.
It was
Before.
Yeah.
before.
It was before, and because I didn't see anything last year about a road committee.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we have one or not right now. I don't know that there have been any
Does-
meetings of any road committees.
There hasn't been.
No meetings?
Oh, there was one back in March and Lloyd was just asking, if we do have a roads committee and, so they did meet and Tom Barden did ask if there's been a charge put forth by the select board.
Right.
And if that's something that the select board would like to do.
And we'd like to make his permanent.
Last I recall, and I think I'm looking at Mr. Burtwell, the representation of the road committee was Tom Barden, Mark Burtwell, Taylor Stevenson, David Stevenson,
Holt Norton.
and Holt Norton.
I believe Holt Norton and
Taylor.
Taylor Stevenson have resigned. but the others three would like to be active.
And, there's no charge that you're working under right now? Did I understand that accurately?
Correct.
Has
I
one
know the
drafted-
hiring committee, their charge has been
drafted,
completed,
And,
so we're done with that.
yeah,
So what I'm thinking we maybe need to do is have some sort of a comprehensive review of these committees and what they do. Okay, I don't know. It probably wouldn't be a bad thing for us to know. Or maybe everybody else here does know and I'm the only one. It would be good for me to know. Then we have an issue about the appointments to the committees.
Yes.
Do we, should we adopt a policy on appointing members to boards, commissions, and committees?
Yes.
And then we have the issue of, should we leave the current vacancies to be filled? Should we leave those empty until a policy is enacted? Or should we employ some kind of an ad hoc procedure to fill those current vacancies and apply the policy to future vacancies? For example, there's a vacancy on the planning board. There's a vacancy on the appeals board. There's a vacancy on the conservation commission.
On the archival board.
Well, I don't even know what an archival board is.
Right.
It's just that
I was gonna say that.
yeah, it is on the appointment list. It is on the town report listed, but there's nothing on the town website about an archival board.
And I have,
Listed in the annual report.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The town report has a list, that's just listed there, yeah.
and my other
But there's
question,
nothing in there that says what they do.
Did Tom get this?
No, yeah, he does, yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
and there is another question that I have as well. If I recall, red means their position is up this year. But we have that the expirations are all when there's a one-year term
Yeah.
next year. So does that mean that although their commissions are up this year, they've all agreed to be part of that board next year?
Well, we haven't appointed any of them.
But
Correct.
if their positions are up this year, do they want to continue on? Do we know
Yes.
that?
No, we don't, but,
We don't?
but back on a process. Do we, let's talk about this. They want to re-up. Should we give, special, consideration to reappointing willing incumbents? Or to appointing alternates first? Or should that just be something that we consider along with everything else? Do we want to have the same process for all appointments? Or do we want to have different categories? For example, we've got boards or commissions, the planning, appeals, conservation, that they make policy, they draft ordinances, the planning board, they adjudicate citizens' rights, the appeals board and the planning board with their petitions. And they otherwise perform functions that affect the town as a whole. And I'm not suggesting any of these committees are more important than others, but that's one category we have. Then we got other standing committees that are advisory in nature, or they have a limited applicability, like the farmer's market or the cemetery committee. Then we got ad hoc advisory committees that we form for a single task for a limited duration, like the town
Hiring.
manager hiring committee. So do we have the same process for all those? Or do we advertise for the boards and commissions? And just reappoint people who are willing in the other committees? These are things that I think we should decide.
This sounds like it's a good topic for a work session.
It is, but the main thing we have to decide today is, so what do we want to do with our vacant positions? With the vacant positions, particularly on the planning board, the appeals board, and the conservation commission? Do we want to just go ahead and come up with a way to appoint them, or do we leave them vacant until we come up with a policy? What do you all think about that?
In my opinion, I think we should, we should take this in steps,
Mhm.
because there's quite a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of questions on the table, but given that there's a past practice or precedent of. Reappointing if they're interested. Or in the last 2 years, they put out an email or
Mhm.
posted, if you want to serve on a committee, put an application in.
Uh-huh.
My opinion, while we work on the policy and all of those questions, I don't think we want to leave some of these positions
Right.
vacant.
Mhm.
So I would say we go on the past practice.
Yep.
And appoint those that have shown an interest in re-upping and seek. Applications for those positions that are currently vacant. And we can then
Yes.
work on our policy.
Yeah.
Okay,
So for this
So-
year, it buys us a little breathing room for this year to
Yeah.
make sure we fill positions, but we can come back and make this more.
you know, if Andrew wants to re-up,
I don't know, I assumed yes, but I didn't ask him
Okay.
directly.
and
the planning board
we
does
don't know
have
the,
alternates.
and we don't know the answer to this, but this is just a hypothetical. Uh, the chairman of the planning board, his term is up, was up, yesterday. So if he wants to continue, do we just reappoint him? And I think if we want to do that pending, if that's what we have to do until we get a policy to go on in the future, I wouldn't object to that. Next question is, if he doesn't want to continue, but one of the alternates would like to move up,
Yes,
do we do that? Or do we go out with this email asking for people to apply to the positions regardless of whether an alternate or Andrew want to stay?
So I don't know the precedent on past practice on alternate stepping up. Planning board though, do we appoint a chair or do we
No.
appoint somebody and then the board, the committee votes to pick their own chair?
We vote to pick our own chair.
So we're
similar
not
to what we
appointing him
just did
back as the
tonight.
chair, we're asking if he wants to go back on the board.
On the board, yeah.
just stick around, yeah. I had a question too, what the
And on the
heck?
appeals board, it's Steve Dodge. His term was up yesterday.
I would like to, before I lose this thought, I would like to make a note for next year, March or April,
Yeah.
that all of the potential vacancies are posted, posted so that we can get people interested
Right.
and applicants before we get to July 1st.
Let's put that in the
One,
policy.
one of the questions I had in the policy, and I'll pass this out for us to look at, just to think about. One of the questions that I had that I wrote for myself is, should the policy establish a schedule to ensure that vacancies are filled effectively when they occur?
Yes.
So that
yes,
when July 1st comes up,
Yeah.
that vacancy's filled.
Right.
I think
That's what
And
you-
we
what you said.
appoint them, right?
I think we should appoint them last year, like these
Right.
people should have all been appointed already,
That's right.
I
So-
think.
If we had vacancies,
Yeah.
certainly.
So if we have no policy, can we ask Shannon to see if another town has got a policy that we can use as a baseline? Or have you found a
Well-
policy, Henry?
No, I don't have a policy. I think we need to make it up. But I also think we could use other towns as go-bys
Yeah.
if we have them, but really, I think we should ask these questions.
Yes.
And then going along with these questions is figure out what these boards are.
Yeah.
Like the cemetery association. I don't really know what that is.
Or when
I
they
know
meet.
that the cemetery association, the Wayne Cemetery Association is a nonprofit entity. It's a nonprofit association that owns and operates the cemeteries. I don't know what their governing documents say or why we would be appointing board members to them. I mean, I don't know. I'm not saying we shouldn't. I'm not saying we should. I'm saying I don't understand this cemetery business.
So they should all have a charter of some kind that
Yeah.
Yeah.
articulates what it is they're supposed to be doing. The only one I can
Sorry.
speak to is the hiring and the town, it was the town manager hiring an interview
Yeah.
committee. And we formally acknowledged their work and disbanded.
And
it,
it's
said the
done.
Work is done,
Right.
so we can put a line through
Yeah.
that one.
Good,
Yes.
good.
Also, Sue Spalding was hired for another advisory board that we don't have one here yet. Is that correct?
The school
The
thing.
school advisory board, yes.
Oh, but is that is that something that, I mean, we don't appoint, they're elected.
They were like,
Do we have a policy or an ordinance on that? Okay, we
Maybe
gotta figure out
somewhere.
what they do. I don't know. But part of getting a policy of how to appoint people is we need to figure out what do we appoint people to do? I think, you know,
Who are
under
they
all
and
these
what are they
committees,
doing?
what do they do?
Yep.
And, you know, do we need some policies on them? Do we need ordinances on them? What do we need? And,
So my point, let's take the next,
Yeah,
so we have it ready in March or April, let's take
Yeah.
the next few months to come up with that policy. And in the meantime, let's see if these incumbents that are expiring, whose terms
Yes.
are expiring,
Mhm.
are willing to reserve, otherwise we seek.
Yeah.
Solicit.
we're acting as though
Volunteers.
there are lots of people who want these jobs, and the fact is there aren't.
I agree.
Yes,
That's
no.
one reason why they go, well, we're talking a little, oh, there's a whole line of people outside the door who wanna be members. and
The-
they-
the
that's-
pay-
Be on the
The pay is
committee.
damn good, Lloyd.
Yeah, well, yeah, there's that.
May I ask a quick question? Our animal control officer handed in her resignation, did she not?
She did not.
She did not.
She's still with us. Good. She rescinded that.
Well, that's good. That means I'm not crazy.
No.
There, okay,
So
thanks.
tell me what y'all think about this. If I send out these questions, look at them and then come up with your own questions just to think about. And then let's put on an agenda item for next meeting to come up with an action plan for an appointment or an appointment policy.
Sure.
I'm not saying we're gonna have an appointment policy. I'm saying we come up with an action plan
Right.
of how we
How to move forward.
propose to go forward and do it. That includes milestones and deadlines.
So Henry, what are you suggesting that we're gonna go through that activity before we?
No, ma'am, I'm suggesting, I'm agreeing with you that, hey, we're at where we're at. We need to deal with it. We got a bunch of vacancies. They should be filled.
Yeah,
That was your
That was my
recommendation,
suggestion.
and I
Right.
agree with it.
okay, I wasn't sure whether.
No,
you-
no, I'm agreeing with that, but I'm
Okay.
saying, as far as, I think it's important to figure what all this means, what these committees do, and what our policy is for appointing committee members,
Okay,
and that's something that isn't going to be done, you know, by
Right.
next meeting.
right,
But hopefully, by next meeting, we can put an action plan into place.
Yeah.
To proceed on that.
so in the meantime, should we ask Shannon to reach out to anybody that's showing as expiring? There's some people in red with no dates, but should we have her reach out to the people to see whether they're willing to serve?
Yes.
Yeah.
I would suggest so, anyway. Do we have a consensus on that?
We do. I think we're gonna trust the way things have been done for
Done.
this cycle, but
For the
we're gonna
cycle.
try to put some formal process in place so that we don't regret not having a process for the next cycle.
Exactly.
Yes,
See, and the last thing I have on my questions list, which is also a complicating factor, I say. There are issues in this business about committee members. Regarding vested rights of incumbents to continued service and so whatever policy we come up with. We need to send that to a lawyer to review. To make sure that we're maintaining maximum flexibility and exercising our judgment. And not letting somebody have a vested right in continued service, although it would be kind of weird for somebody to make a big fight and take us to court to keep a volunteer job. But who knows what,
Experience with the Girl Scouts was, it was very hard to fire a volunteer and they actually had a whole process with.
well, and that's the same way. If you look at the manual that you've been perusing, there's a section in there about due process rights
Right.
of committee appointees. And so whatever we do ultimately,
Would
we
have
need
to-
to send it to legal and say,
Yeah.
what do you suggest on this? And then we could be done. We can put it on the website and we'll have it for the future.
So the third part of this, we haven't really talked about, is for those positions where we know we have vacancies, do we want Shannon to put something out on the website. And or send that email, the group email out to
I think
let
both.
her know
I would
if
say,
they're interested.
I think we were saying only if an incumbent doesn't want to go back on. Is that correct? If the person who was on there says, I want to stay on, that's the choice we're making. Is that what we said?
Yeah, but I thought there was
Yes.
a known vacancy.
There's one.
One on the Conservation Commission.
So the Regional Solid Waste Committee has decided that they only want, that we only want, or need one representative besides a select board representative. So, yay,
That solves that one.
yes, so we don't have a vacancy as long as Kelly decides to stick around, and I'm sticking around because here I am. Okay.
So, Shannon will contact the incumbents whose terms have expired, ask if they want to continue serving. If they do want to continue serving for this round, we're going to just agree to that, correct? Or not?
Yeah. we'll just
Yes.
agree.
Okay. And if there's people that don't want to continue serving and we got vacancies, she's going to do some recruitment.
Mhm.
Okay. And
And
next
there was
week,
an application form
Mhm.
kicking around.
Yes, Trent sent that to me.
and next week,
Okay.
we will try to get an action plan in place. Okay,
So because the road committee is not on this list and it predated you, can we make the assumption that Shannon will reach out to the existing members of the road committee
Yeah.
to solicit their?
we need a road committee, and
Yeah.
that charge that Bryce had looked pretty good to me.
Yeah.
And we need a road committee to help us put out RFP for road services. And I don't know that that work's gonna be done this year. Might not be. But if it isn't, we need to have it ready so it gets done as soon as the weather permits in the spring.
And to figure out what those people are gonna be able to do without a plowed road.
Well, I don't know, maybe people are not busy, and then maybe we can do it, but we need
Figure it
some,
out,
yeah,
Figure it out.
So I like facts and data.
yeah,
I think facts and data are, we need the road committee, we had names on a road committee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's get the road committee back in
Right.
well.
play and not speculate.
On a road committee, I would like to know what their experience, for a road committee, I'm not into on cemetery committees and farmers market committees, really asking somebody what their qualifications are, cause I am not that interested in it. But road committee, I think we need to know what experience they have with roads. We need to know that they're not affiliated with any contractors who are doing this work that we're going to be working with, because we can't have somebody on our road committee who is,
Gonna be, because it's a small town.
if we can't have somebody on our road committee who's gonna bid on the work.
You're gonna have, because it's a
Well,
small town.
Okay, well, then maybe we need to go hire an engineer,
Well, we,
because, but I'm just suggesting, and again, hey, if 3 of the 5 of us say that's okay, then that's okay, and but I would suggest we talk to legal about it. About having someone on a road committee who may have an interest in a company that's going to be bidding on the work.
So,
well, the
I
road
think-
committee doesn't make the final decisions either necessarily.
That's why it was formed as an advisory.
Yes, but they also have they're going to be, well, as I said,
so I would like to jump in. I
Yeah.
think they can recuse themselves or excuse themselves if they're putting themselves with a conflict of interest, but I think the scope of the road committee as an advisory committee is greater than just writing an RFP. We haven't even decided if they would write the RFP or how they would play into that.
well, I think they're
Well,
gonna, they're gonna have to provide input on specs. They're gonna have advanced knowledge on what roads are being done. But here's the thing, maybe I don't close down the fact that maybe I'm an alarmist, and I could be wrong on this, and if we choose to do it, let's just check with legal and see if there's an issue.
I would say technically you're absolutely right. I would say practically Mark is absolutely right.
Yeah, that's right.
So we have to figure out the best way to get around it
Let's
possible.
just deal, let's have this organization deal with it and not us spending any more time on it.
Yeah.
Maybe from being a select.
So,
Quick question.
yes, ma'am.
So just to confirm, since you are sticking with the previous practices, if they are up for a renewal for 5 years, are you continuing up with the 5-year renewal?
It's a 5-year term.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah, good question,
sure, let's, good.
because that's
Did
quite a
you have-
term.
Did you have a question on that?
Oh, that was just it.
Oh.
Just asking if it would be a 1 year
No,
until you come up with a policy, but.
no, I think
That's a
I
good
think we
question.
I think we fill vacancies for what they are.
Understood.
Now, there was a question that was posed to me by email that why are these 5 years? And the ones that are 5 years are the planning board, and, is it the conservation? No, it's not the Conservation Commission, the planning board.
I think it is.
Oh, the budget committee.
Oh.
Okay, and but the
Right.
planning board, and of course, we don't appoint a budget committee, they're elected. But both of those 5-year terms are in town ordinances. So if the term wanted to be less, it would have to go to town meeting with an ordinance revision.
Okay,
So
done.
are we ready to move on? We got 10 minutes left of our 2 hours.
Yeah, I'm ready to move on.
We're ready.
Yeah,
Ready.
looking
Okay.
forward, you're gonna send that out to us for us to
I'm gonna
peruse.
give it to you before we leave tonight.
Okay,
I've got enough copies. Okay. Public comments, yeah, Mark. Yeah, okay.
They answered my comments.
Any on the remote viewers?
Not
Yes,
seeing it. Good. Betsy?
Betsy,
Yes.
go ahead.
yes. I'm listening to your discussion and I understand that you need to work on a policy, procedures for making these appointments. And yes, I did email to Henry because I had some concerns. I wasn't sure if I was be able to make the meeting tonight. And I do have an issue with, just allowing someone on a, and I'll take the planning board as just automatically letting someone renew their appointment for 5 years, 5 full years. You don't have a policy, renew it for 5 full years before you've even put it out there to the public that that there will be an opening to see, maybe there isn't anybody else who's interested, but to just let someone renew for 5 years and then another 5 years and then another 5 years and another 5 years. There's no term limits.
Well, there is,
You have a good point, Betsy. But the vacancy is for a 5-year term. The option is to leave the position vacant. The planning board has alternates. You could leave the planning board position vacant. I don't know that that's the right thing to do, and I'm sorry that we didn't already have a policy in effect, but we don't.
So can we,
Yes, ma'am.
okay, just acknowledge the public comment,
right,
but we're not making any decision
Right.
on it tonight, and we're not actually formally appointing these
right,
people until we come back
right.
with names, and at that point in time, we
Okay,
could choose that we're not gonna appoint for
I-
5 years.
I-
Let's acknowledge the comment
I agree, thank
and
you.
move on.
One item
Okay.
for the policy would be term limits.
Well, yeah, if we want to put that in a policy, no,
Yeah,
but I
we
agree.
might. Cause
Yeah.
Any other public comments?
Did we lose that public member over here?
I guess so.
Okay,
That's,
town manager,
that's Lloyd's.
town manager report.
Okay, so, this
He
is
doesn't
the
get-
request for proposals for the 100-acre wood went out. So that's in the works right now. As mentioned at the last meeting, this Thursday will be our clerk's last day. So we will be closed on Friday for the 4th of July holiday. Next Tuesday and Friday, I'm planning to be open. I will be the only one in the office. And then Wednesday, I'm planning to close for training, for Moses training. And then also Thursday to close for administration. We're getting a visit from the bank representative to kind of go through all of our systems with me. But Wednesday and Thursday, I will be advertising, it will be. So, planning to resume normal hours for July 15th. Other than that, I understand the Strawberry Festival is scheduled for July 12th. And then I think there's something happening on Sunday, the 13th. I'll turn it over to Mary Ann.
Oh, absolutely. The hazardous waste collection day, which is open to the town of Wayne, I think Reedfield and Fayette, and I think Belgrade is in there for some reason. Is going to be held. It's between 9 and 12. And applications can be received. We have to go to the town office to be able to get an assigned time. And we have to know exactly what we're going to bring. But for those who want to be part of that, they have to go into the town office and sign up for an assigned time period.
Well, I have,
I'll be there.
You want to give us an update on your hiring activities?
Please.
So, I've conducted 3, 4, 6 interviews. I've put it out to 2 people for positions, waiting to hear back from them. I had met with another person today and, pending what I hear back, I have another proposal to make. And so I do expect that we will have a full office staff, not next week, but hopefully the week after that.
Good job.
fantastic,
Thank you.
fantastic.
Any of
And-
the folks
and-
that she and I had talked to?
I don't think so.
And maybe I zoned out when you told us this, I don't know, but are we doing something for Kathy's last day for breakfast or something like that?
So I was gonna put together a big tray
Yeah.
of some pastries. She doesn't know this
Yeah.
yet, but I guess she won't see this. And then
No.
so Thursday morning, if you wanted to swing
Yeah.
by the office.
Great.
Is
And
there
then-
a time where you're thinking morning? I don't know if you would be available before work to stop by or not. I would just,
What's your timing
That's
for
this
that?
Thursday, the 3rd?
Yeah.
Yes, I think we're just gonna do something kind of informal, cause I expect it'll be busy this week with it being her last day. I think a lot of people have been coming in to try to get new registrations done and just get a lot of things done, especially with it being right before the 4th of July weekend.
Yeah,
A lot of people,
Yeah.
yep, come in and get their votes and registrations. She's been going through trying to get all of her reports done. And she's also been training me on some of the clerk duties. And so, it just tends to be very busy. So I wasn't really planning anything, elaborate.
should this committee,
So do you want to see
should
if-
the board do something for something special, a gift or something that will deal with?
I think we could talk offline.
let's talk, yeah, we could talk
Alright.
about that afterwards.
Okay, I have a.
Reports, board member report?
Yep, I got one.
Okay,
I like the list of loose ends a lot. There are 2 items that I'd like to add to well, 3 items I'd like to add to the list. One is perambulating the boundaries of the town,
I had that on mine too.
which has not been done for ages. I think summer's a good time to plan doing it, because actually doing it is gonna be a lot of up and down and struggling through bad, it turns out that it's not a state law that we do it, but it seems to be that the longer we wait, the harder it gets. And I don't know, I've gotta learn some more about it, but that's one thing that needs to be on it, and that should be on the agenda down the line, and we'll decide when later. The matter of low income housing, I think needs to be on the agenda. And in that case, I imagine we could get a group of people with a similar interest in it, and get them, going on trying to figure out what can we do given the circumstances, and what in particular the changes in zoning laws have had any impact, or if they are gonna have any impact here. And the third item is, I happened to notice in my, Maine Townsman book, or Town and City book, that, they have a little section that talks about news from different towns. I think it'd be nice if Shannon's appointment were mentioned there. And I think a good time would be well, the whole group is together, which is got that full complement of people, then say Shannon McConnell is director and blah, blah, blah. Does that make sense? Good.
also, Lloyd, I'd like to know more sometime in a future meeting, because we're late now. But I'd like to know more about this outfit that may have contribution to the town for 100 Acre Woods. You mentioned, I don't even remember the name of it, but you said that there was some,
Oh, the Land for Maine Futures Board?
yeah,
Okay,
I want to know more about
good.
that in
That's-
the
yeah,
future.
that,
Okay.
Yeah, good.
Another thing for that unfinished business, I think this new state law may help us with this. But we've talked about getting a review of the lakeside septic systems
Yeah.
and put a database in. So we understand what's out there and what's at risk.
And I've already done a lot of work on that board, just not dumping that on you yet.
And the other thing on that list is that we had been talking about potentially looking at the farmer's market, the way that we've reviewed the Lad Rec Center. So as we go forward this year, we were talking about making it I think the bank account primarily.
Okay.
Hazel, anything?
Yeah, I'd like to take some action on the requirement for the contract of town manager expectations.
I have an executive session scheduled for the next meeting. That work?
So I was gonna say, might be useful to throw some thoughts together, so I would be happy to throw some kind of
Okay.
thoughts together. If we're
Great.
gonna have an executive session to actually execute it, maybe I can meet with Shannon, because Shannon's got some ideas apparently. And we could maybe come up with the framework or whatever we're gonna put into that executive session.
That would be great.
Yeah,
If
thank
you're
you.
willing to
That's
take
great.
that on, that would be great, I think. Okay. Tom, anything?
Not necessarily at this time, getting all you guys out and listening and taking it in and just figuring out where it makes sense for me to contribute at this point.
I think we ought to have,
Day one.
we ought to have some deadline for when that problem that, Mr. Burtwell put to us last week, which was,
What was-
we're not gonna be able to plow the road, you guys, and we ought to get there to committee candidates to find the solution to that. Then he does no projections on that?
Yeah,
I'm happy to help. And I've been looking at it to help with a road RFP. But, I need some road people
Yeah.
to work with it. Uh,
We got a group of them right there.
You just excluded me a few minutes ago.
Do you do paving work? Huh?
No.
Then
Have
Then
you
you-
looked at the road?
you're not, then, no.
Have any of you looked at the roads besides Shannon?
Well, I looked at the one that I walk on, but I haven't looked at
I
that.
haven't looked at all of them, but I
Have you
have,
looked at the three that were mentioned or four?
last meeting.
Yeah.
I have not seen last meeting's minutes and I wasn't here.
What are the three? Stinchfield,
It could. Strickland Ferry.
yeah,
I have been there,
Bessie Road, Green
I've been there.
Shoe Road,
been there,
Morrison Heights.
haven't been there lately,
And is Ridge Road, was that one of them too?
haven't been there.
And
lately.
this has been sort of fixed, still needs wear service. What is that, Berry Road? What is the one by Ford's house? What is that?
Very,
Berry.
oh, that's
Very,
excessive.
pretty bad.
well, we ought to take.
Is that on the list? I don't remember it being on there.
Well, we ought to take a little field trip on some of these things. It won't take much time.
Well, we should all do that
Yeah.
Okay,
for the next meeting, right?
Right.
But we'll work with you anyway, I can.
okay,
Thanks, appreciate it.
so, motion to adjourn,
Second,
all in favor? Passes
Okay.
unanimously.
Not bad, 2
good
hours, 3
ESP.
minutes.
All right, we messed up. We're already violating the rules.
Yeah.